Hatching is an enterprise on its own in catfish farming, and there are farmers that major basically on hatching. So in case you're interested in hatching, it is a very technical aspect of catfish farming, and much knowledge and expertise is required to be able to hatch successfully, because it's not like grow out that all you need to do is to change water and feed. There are a lot that needs to be considered when you want to hatch. In this video, I'll be practically showing you and extensively how to hatch successfully without having large mortality rate when you hatch, because that's a major problem that hatchers face in this business. In case you're seeing me for the first time, my name is John from Oxjay, and at Oxjay we have about 300,000 hatching capacity, and we utilize about 200,000 in every 2 weeks in our hatching. If you're new to this channel, do make sure you hit the subscription button and turn on your notification bell, as we'll be pushing out more educational content and useful content like this on catfish farming on this channel always. In this video, I will be guiding you step by step practically on how to successfully hatch. Meanwhile, the overall process involved in hatching is you basically getting the eggs from the female catfish and getting the milk, which is the sperm sac, from the male. Then you use these two components for fertilization and proceeding to the incubation, and you successfully hatch. So the first step to hatching is you sourcing a healthy female and inducing that female for ovulation. So this is how it is done. So when you get your quality female broodstocks, then you do what we call injecting. So injecting helps you to induce that particular female for ovulation. Mind you, what you are trying to do is to get the egg, extract the eggs from this female, and naturally they won't easily give up their eggs to you. So you do what we call inducing. And what is used for inducing is this. In the natural world, the way it works is when the female is ripe for ovulation, it goes to a part in the river and releases its eggs. Then the male goes there and release the sperm on it, and fertilization happens. So it is the same process we are trying to reciprocate. So there is what is called the pituitary gland on the male's head that has been used to form a substance that we use to induce the ovulation, just to make the female honey, should I say, to be able to release its eggs to you before you can use. So that substance, they sell in the market. We use ovulin, there is overprim, there are a lot of them, and they are basically made from the pituitary gland that is extracted from the head of the male, right? So how we inject is this. You get your female broodstocks, which is your female fish that you want to use for the hatching, and you take the particular weight for that female. So when you get the particular weight, let's say it is 2 kg, you're going to inject that particular female with this substance that is made from the pituitary gland of the male with half mil, right, of its weight. So if let's say the female is 2 kg, you're going to inject 1 mil of this substance into the female, right, into the female, and this will actually help the ovulation after about 10 hours. So the substance, it could be overprim, it could be, there are different ones, right? If you go to any fish store, you'll see you can easily ask for overprim. So you take half mil of the weight of the fish to inject that particular fish, and the way you inject is this. There is, if you check a matured catfish, you're going to see what we call the lateral line. So the lateral line is just in between the fish, starting from the dorsal fin down to the bottom. You see the lateral line. So close to the head, right, you can inject. There is a muzzle there between the lateral line and the dorsal fin. There is a muzzle. You can inject on that muzzle, or you can inject directly on the lateral line if you want to. Some people don't inject there. You can inject directly on the lateral line, and when you're injecting, don't forget you're injecting half mil of the weight of that particular fish, right? So immediately you inject your fish, you allow it stay for, usually we inject at night, then we allow it stay overnight, right? So we allow it stay overnight, let's say about 10 to 11 hours. But if the weather is a little bit hot, it could be about 9 to 10 hours. Then you see that they easily give up their eggs for you. When you gently press, they give their eggs to you easily. So that is the first step you start with when you want to hatch. Number 2 steps is you extracting the milk from the male. That is, you extracting the sperm sac from the male. So after inducing the female for ovulation, like I told you, you're going to leave it overnight for about 10 hours to 11 hours. When they are ready the next morning, then what you do next is to get the male fish. So once you get the male fish, you can, usually we sacrifice the male for this process, right? Because we're going to tear it open and get the sperm sac. But if you do not want to sacrifice it, you can decide to stitch it back after tearing. But most of the time we just consume it, we use it, right? So after you get the male, you're going to tear it open to check the sperm sac, which is the milk. So once you check, usually it has to be very thick milkish color, right, for you to know that it is very good and healthy. So once you extract it from the male, once you tear the male open and you see that it is good, then you can go on, you can proceed to extracting the eggs, stripping the eggs off the female. So the way we strip the egg off the female is by gently pressing the stomach. By that time they are already induced, so it will easily give up its egg for you. So you gently press it. If you don't do it with care, you're going to injure that fish, or you're going to affect the eggs as well. By breaking it, you're probably going to break it. So what you do is to gently press the stomach gently, and it will release its egg to you. So you can use a bowl to collect the eggs for as many fish you want to use, right? You can collect the eggs gently pressing the stomach. So after collecting the egg, make sure throughout this process you do not use water, right? So just keep water away from this entire process, because immediately water touches with the sperm and the egg, fertilization starts to happen. So you keep water away for now, because you're still trying to go through this process. And when water touches the female egg, it closes up the nucleus, which is supposed to help in the fertilization. So you just make sure you keep water away. Then step 4 of this process is what we call spawning. Is you actually bringing what you got from the female and the male together to run this fertilization process. So after extracting the eggs carefully, you get the milk from the male, which you already tore open. You get the milk from it. Then you're going to use a blade to tear the milk and extract the sperm out of the sperm sac, and you can mix it with a little saline water, right, and pour it into the egg. You can rinse the cup or the bowl. Usually use a small cup just to contain everything in a small place, because it's not usually much and you need it to fertilize your eggs, the female eggs. So after getting it, right, you can raise the cup as well with saline water. Please don't use normal water, it can spoil the whole process. So with saline water, you raise the cup and you pour it into the whole bowl containing everything. Then you can gently turn the mixture, right? So you are advised to use a rubber spoon. The reason for this is just so you don't break the eggs. When you use an iron spoon, you can break the eggs, so you're not supposed to. And you gently do it, you don't do it with force. Don't spoil the egg, because the spoiled egg will eventually spoil the other ones that are good. So you gently turn it, gently turn it, gently turn it, to make sure that the sperm has reached everything. So you can add more saline water and still turn gently, turn gently, turn gently, turn gently. And after you are done turning, there's what we call cankerban. So the cankerban, before this time, you must have prepared your ponds that you want to use, your hatching ponds. So in the hatching pond, you're going to have a net we usually construct, we call it cankerban. Just fill up your tank with water a little bit, then the cankerban will be inside, and you can place a stone on it. Also make sure that everything you are using must have been disinfected with salt. You wash your ponds preparation, you're going to wash your ponds with salt. You wash everything you'll be using with salt to disinfect everything. The stones you're going to be using to place on the net, you're going to wash it as well thoroughly with salt to make sure you are disinfecting everything, right? So you can place stones on the net, then you gently lay the eggs on the net. So why you lay it on the net is when the fertilization eventually happens, the fish will swim down through the net under the pond, and its embryo, right, it remains on top of the net. Step 4 is the next day after spawning. So after spawning, you're going to, depending on how favorable the temperature is, your hatching room is actually supposed to be hot. So if the weather is cold in your area, you are advised to turn up maybe charcoal for it. Just make sure that place is hot. It needs a hot environment to hatch successfully. So depending on how hot your environment is, your hatching can happen faster or it can be delayed, right? So if the weather is not so good, it could take you up to 35 hours before all of it will eventually drop. But morning of that next day, which is 24 hours, you should be seeing them dropping already. Some of it just, when I say dropping now, hatching successfully. Some of it will be hatching successfully. If you look down the net, you see some of the fish under the net already by that time. So after that long time, so you're going to remove the net from the water and you carefully shake it off in another pond entirely. So you just gently shake it off, then you gently take that off. The next step after you take the nets off is you nurturing them for the first 3 days. For the first 3 days, you're not going to feed them. They're going to be feeding on the yolk sac, right? The yolk sac that remains in the water is what they'll be feeding on for the first 3 days. So you start your feeding after the first 3 days. Also, throughout this process, you'll be running what we call flow through, right? The flow through is you basically letting the water out and you running the water in. So the water keeps running, it keeps running. So this, you can start the flow through from the afternoon after spawning, because immediately they start hatching, the bad air will pollute the water. So if the water is not constantly flowing, it can affect the ones that are hatching and they will eventually die, right? So you keep on running flow through system for them. So after 3 days, you can start feeding them with starter feed. So you need to start with starter feed, right? The starter feed, usually you can start with 0.1 or you can start with 0.2 feed. And the starter feed is usually highly nutritious. The protein content is usually high. So you use starter feed to start them up with the first day that you start feeding them. So let's say in case you find it difficult to getting 0.1 starter feed, you can get 0.2 and further crush it into 0.1 so that it can fit what they need it for. Further blend it, you just can do it. So make sure the size of the feed is 0.1 so that they can easily pick it and go from there. And that is the entire process for hatching, from selecting a good male broodstock and a female broodstock, to injecting the female, to extracting the eggs, extracting the milk from the male, to spawning and eventually incubating. So that is the entire process that is involved in hatching. We want to show you practically on things you are supposed to do before hatching. We call it pond preparation. When you want to hatch, there are things you are supposed to do. First of all, before hatching, things must be in place, like your pond preparation, your equipment preparations, and a whole lot of that. Just basically preparation. That's what we want to show you today. Basically preparation. It does not include broodstock selection. Basically, you're supposed to prepare your hatchery room, right, before you hatch, that is before you spawn. So stay tuned. That's what we'll be showing you practically right now. So guys, number one thing you're supposed to do is your pond preparation. That is, you need to wash your pond. You need to thoroughly disinfect your pond. If not, when you hatch the newly hatched ones inside, if there are bacteria and other harmful organisms in that pond, all of them will die after hatching. So number one thing you need to do is to prepare your pond. And the way you prepare your pond is, you can come and show this. This is what the pond looks like right now. So you first of all do what we call first washing, right? After doing what we call first washing, by first of all washing it, first of all washing the pond, right? So after the first washing all of this dirt away, it doesn't stop there. After the first washing all this dirt away, you will now like rinse it with salt. So that is what this salt is for. So you're going to rinse this particular pond with salt, and you can as well get industrial salt, right? This is more effective. The concentration is more high, right? So you can use this for your as your disinfectant. So after washing, doing what we call the first washing, then you use this industrial salt to rinse it. Just sprinkle it on the body. Don't worry, we're going to show you that practically, and you're going to rinse it. So let's wait for the first washing, then we'll use the salt. We are done with the first washing, right? And now what we want to do now is to disinfect this particular pond with salt. Like I told you, you can use industrial salt. So you see how we're doing it. We just sprinkle the salt all through the pond, right? Sprinkle around the pond. Then you can use the sponge to brush it through. Then after that, you rinse it, and that's all. So stay with us while we do all this together practically. So you can see we have thoroughly run through the entire pond, making sure that we rinse it with salt, right? Then the next thing is to just rinse with water, let the water out, and you are done for pond preparation. So after the pond preparation, the next thing will be disinfecting all your materials that you'll be using for hatching with salt as well. Like this bowl, this one we use to collect the eggs, right? And this one too, if the eggs are much, we use this too to collect the eggs. This spoon is what we use to gently mix the eggs, right? Or to collect some droppings of the eggs. So we use this particular spoon. There is a reason why we are using rubber spoon actually. If you use iron spoon, it can break some of your eggs, and that broken ones will eventually corrupt the remaining eggs, and you may not get a better result, right? So this as well is going to be, everything you're using will be disinfected with salt and water. We use salt and water basically. So you disinfect this, you disinfect this particular spoon. Sometimes we use this cup to collect the milk, but not always. We disinfect this particular one as well. We disinfect this bowl as well. We are going to disinfect this bowl. So this is entirely everything we use, and the process for this one is just simple. Adding that same quantity of salt you see inside this water and washing everything inside the water. Basically that is it. So these are the things you are supposed to do before you hatch, as pond preparation before you hatch, right? So when we are done with disinfecting everything we need to use, like all of this one, the next thing we'll do is this guy as well, this tanker band. We're going to disinfect this like thoroughly. We'll disinfect this tanker band. The same thing, wash this net with salt water, wash the pipes, everything with salt water. That is how to disinfect this tanker band. So after you must have disinfected everything, this net, all your materials and all, then you pour water inside the pond, right? You pour water inside the pond and raise it up to a level. Don't worry, we'll be showing you all of that practically today. Stay tuned, as we'll be showing you everything you need to know to become successful in hatching. So now guys, we are done with pond preparation. At least we have thoroughly washed the pond, and also this net has to be disinfected, which it has already. We have disinfected this particular net already, right? Then the next thing is to open water for this particular pond. Then you lock your outlet. You lock your outlet, you open water for it, and you have your tankaban net inside. Right? You have your tankaban net inside. You raise the water up to this level. Just up to this level. Right? So when the water is raised, normally you raise the water before you put this net. But if you want, you can put this net as well. When the water is raised, the net will come up to this level, right? Up to this level. Then you do your outlet. There is a way you fix it professionally. My manager will discuss about that one. How to professionally construct your outlet in a very good, efficient way. So he's going to talk about it and he will explain how to, fix all of that.
So this is the net that you put inside the pond. So the first thing you do, you get your net with a small match hole. You make sure that the mesh of this net, the flies cannot pass through it when they hatch. So you make sure that the hole of the net is small enough that flies will not pass through it. So then you wrap it around your pipe. The pipe you would have already made holes in the pipe that water can pass through. Some people use sodium iron to perforate the pipe. Here we use salt to cut it. Anyway you do it's fine. Then you wrap it around, then use rubber band to hold the net around the pipe so that your fish will not go out with the water. So the net, you place the seed. Most people call it screen. You place the screen inside your outlet hole so that anytime you release water, the water will just be going out slowly, gently, and your flies will be inside the pond, will not flow out. So that's how to arrange it.
So guys, that is all that you need to do as a pre-preparation before hatching. How to take care of your newly hatched catfish. We know that this is a very technical part if you are into production in catfish farming. This is a very technical part. So we are in the hatchery today, which is the hatching room, to show you basically how to handle them and take care of them. It is very sensitive how to handle them and take care of them. Number one point we'll be talking about right now is the pond construction, right? How you are supposed to construct your pond for this hatchery, like that is the newly hatched. They call it hatchlings, right? The newly hatched, how to construct the pond effectively. And number two is how to feed them. You don't feed them like the way you feed the ones outside, which is the grow out or the nursery section. You don't feed them the same way. There are patterns to their feeding. So we'll be discussing how your pond is supposed to be constructed, right? And the advantages of having this kind of pond will actually tell you all of what you're seeing here is intentional, right? They are not just constructed anyhow. They are all well planned and constructed. So number one, I said how your pond construction should be for the hatchery, and number two is how to feed them. So if you understand all of this, it will help you appropriately manage your newly hatched catfish in the hatchery, because a lot of persons are having problem with that, whereby you hatch and after some days they are all dead. They are very, very fragile, right? So there are things you're supposed to do to keep them alive. So starting with number one, how your pond is going to be constructed, I think my manager will talk to you about that. Then when it's done, we will talk about how you're supposed to feed them appropriately.
Good day everyone, my name is Ken. About the pond construction, the first advantage of constructing your pond well is the size of the pond. The way you construct this pond, the size is intentional. Some people construct their pond in like they make it longer than come and show them the pond size already. So you can see that the pond size is square and it's not that long. I think this should be 3 by 3. Yeah. So some people they do construct their own pond long. For example, you want to do like 2 sizes of this one, like these 2 ponds matched together. So that's going to be the length of 1 pond. So the number one advantage of constructing your pond this way is that, for example, now you want to your water inside the pond is already bad, so and you want to let it out, but due to the fact that it's hatchlings that are inside the pond, you don't want to take the water down too low so that not to stress them. You know that they are very fragile at this stage. So the best thing to do is to just run your flow to and make the water be going out at the same time to make the water clear. So if the pond is this small size, the water inside will be able to clear out quickly than when it's a long pond. So it's going to take a longer time for you to clear out the pond than when it's this small size. So then the second point, the second advantage is during siphoning. If the pond is a long pond, it takes a longer time to siphon the whole pond, like, and the beds will be in some places your hand will not be able to reach them, like the middle of the pond. And so the third point again is disease outbreak. So like now, this small pond, the number of fish that you have that you can use this pond to hatch is like limited. It's not going to be the same thing when you have a longer pond. So if you have a longer pond, you want to maximize the space inside the pond. So you have to hatch a lot inside the pond. So compared to this small one, if there is a disease outbreak inside this pond now, and you hatch inside your pond, maybe like you use like 4 or 6 ponds for this one, it's going to be like 4 or 6. Then for the longer ones, for like 4 ponds, it's going to be like 2 ponds for that one. So if you hatch inside and there's a disease outbreak inside one pond, now it's only the fish that are inside that particular pond that maybe if they drop or something, it's only that fish that's going to drop that you're going to lose. But if you are using the long ones, then you are going to lose more fish due to disease in the pond than the smaller ones, which are going to contain lesser fish than the long ones. The long ones will contain more fish. So if there's any disease outbreak inside the long ones, you are going to lose a whole lot of fish. But the small ones, you just lose that particular pond alone.
So guys, that is it about the disadvantages of having all your hatching in just one long pond, right? It's actually not a professional practice. Just to repeat again, when all your hatching is just in one very long particular pond, when there is a disease outbreak, instead of it affecting just one particular pond where the problem is coming from, I mean, if there is just one long pond, you stand the chance of losing everything, right? Stand the chance of losing everything. And if your water is bad, because in the hatchery we don't usually drop the water once, we run like a flow through for them. If your water is bad and you want to gradually let them out and bring in new one, it will take a longer time to let the bad water out. So it is best to have your hatchery pond well contained in this way, just so that all your hatchlings can be easy to manage effectively. In this way you will have a better result. So number 2 is how to feed them. Why we are here today is because these are newly hatched. You can see the result we have. I think there are 2 days, right? 2 days. This is 2 days of hatching. See our result. You can view this very well. View this very well. You have see our result. See the result. I mean, these guys are massive. I think right now we just have about 100,000, approximately about 100,000 going up to that extent. So now I want to discuss how you feed them. How you feed them. When you newly hatch and you know that they are out already, you know, and you remove the tanker ban. I believe you'll be familiar with some of these things because we have done a video on how to hatch. So you can go back and listen to that video if you want to get more information about that. But when you are done hatching successfully and you remove the tanker ban, for the first 3 days you're not going to feed them. Why is that? That is because they will be feeding on the yolk sac they came with. That is how it is naturally for them. They'll be feeding on the yolk sac they came with for the first 3 days. So you leave them, don't give them any natural food. Allow them to come up, allow them to naturally feed on the yolk sac they came with. Then after the first 3 days, you start feeding. So at your point of feeding, your first size of feed should be 0.1. That is where they start feeding from. The size is very tiny naturally. But if you're not able to get 0.1 in the market, you can start with 0.2. But please don't start with 0.3. Some people will say they will feed them, but I personally do not do that. I don't start with 0.3. So you can start with 0.2 if you're not able to get 0.1 in the market, right? Of any feed. You can use main prime, German wing. I don't think German wing is still coming. Just any feed you want. I mean foreign feed for this guy. The first day, 0.1. So if you're starting with 0.1, you give them that 0.1 for about 4 days or 5 days, right? When you see that their size is a little bit bigger and they can take 0.2. You then switch to 0.2. So you feed them 0.2 for about 4 to 5 days as well. 4 to 5 days. When there is a significant growth in their size, you can then switch to 0.3, right? So when you're on 0.3, they can remain on that till they leave this hatchery. So they can remain on that. The next size of feed is actually 0.5, but they can remain on 0.3 for the next 2 weeks. Mind you, you have used like 1 week and some days to feed 0.1 and 0.2. So for the next 2 weeks, they can remain on 0.3. So when they are done feeding on that 0.3 for the next 2 weeks, you can now move them to your nursery. By then, they must have attained fingerling size. So when they are in fingerling size, you can now continue feeding them with 0.5. That is when you are outside in the nursery. By then, you must have taken them away from this hatchery room. Then you can feed them with 0.5. And also the feeding pattern, you don't just pour feed to them anyhow. You know, overfeeding can kill them, right? So you have to be very careful while you're feeding them. While you're feeding them, you have to be very careful. That is, you feed them, you know they are very small. So you feed them little but more often. Do you understand? Don't overfeed them, but feed them more. Don't overfeed them, but feed them more. So in essence, you feed very frequently, like 3 hours you feed them. In every 3 hours you feed them, just little by little. So you always monitor them and watch what is happening. While you're feeding them, if you notice they are not taking the feed again, and you're noticing some residue of the feed on top of the water, then you know that it is time for you to stop. So you just watch them, you feed them gradually like that in every pond. Feed them. When they are not feeding again, you stop. Then come back after 3 hours. If they are not feeding, don't force them. Don't give them more than what they can take. So we have explained everything on how you handle and take care of them from this hatchery room till they get to the nursery section, and that is how you are going to handle them. No much thing about that again. That is how you are going to handle them from here to the okay, we didn't talk about siphoning. Every morning you have to siphon because there will be residue of their waste under the water. If you check under right now, you will see some dirt. So maybe we'll do another video on how to siphon so that you practically see that. I'll do that video probably tomorrow on how to siphon, right? So you siphon every morning. Every morning you siphon. Every morning before feeding them. Please don't siphon after feeding them. You're stressing them. Before feeding them is when you are supposed to siphon. Then you feed them, and that is all. So next is I'll be doing the video on how to siphon. Practically, we'll do that video for you to know exactly how to siphon in your hatchery. Hello guys, good morning. Like we talked about yesterday, that today we're going to be practically showing you how to siphon. I think this video is going to be a continuation of the previous one, which was how to take care of your newly hatched crabs in the hatchery. Your newly hatched catfish in the hatchery, how to take care of them. And one of the exercises you're going to be doing, especially when you start feeding them, day-to-day routine that you'll be doing, one of them is siphoning. And siphoning is basically you taking the dirt away from under the pond, right? Siphoning is taking the dirt away from under the pond, leaving the fish alone in the pond, because the dirt can easily pollute the water and it will make the environment not so likely for your fish. So you definitely have to find a way to getting this dirt away, leaving just your fish alone in the water, right? Normally, there is no way you can siphon completely without having to pick 1 or 2 fish, but you try your best to avoid some of these fish, right? You try your best to avoid some of the fish and just pick the dirt alone. But there's no way you can completely avoid the fish. Some of them are still going to passing through the siphoning hole down to your dirty water where you're siphoning to. So what you do after siphoning is that you still like get the remnant dirt in what you have just siphoned and leave the fish, then return back that same fish. Then after you have returned back the fish, you will now do what we call salt bait for them, because you must have stressed them, and you and I know that catfish does not like stress at all. Any little stress they can drop. So you do a salt bait for either your returning pond, or if it's been long you did salt bait. I think you can do salt bait every 3 days in the hatchery. And if it's within that time frame, make sure you do salt bait for that pond that you're returning the siphon
fish back because they are already stressed and you don't want them to go. You do salt bait for them and they will be okay. They will be fine. After siphoning, this is what you have. Come on, see this. This is what you have definitely. There are going to be a lot of dirt under the rubber, and you can see your siphon fish. You can't do without having to kick any of them at all. So what you do now, they are little. You just simply siphon the dirt under away and return this already fish back inside the pond, right? Take the dirt under away. I think we'll be showing that as well practically just now. When you take it away, then you return the remaining fish back inside the pond. Then you do salt bait for them and you are done.
That's it. You have finished siphoning from inside the fertilization. So you first tear the dirt and turn it around like this, so that the dirt will be able to settle down under the bag, and it will be easier for you to pick it up and return the fish back into the pond. So you leave it like this for some while to settle. So when it settles, then you siphon the fish back. You siphon the dirt out of the bag and return the fish into the pond. So you can repeat this process like 2 times or 3 times if the fish are still remaining inside the water. So you can repeat the process like 2 to 3 times. Then, well, as much as you need to remove most of your fish out back into the pond. So allow this one to settle first. Then we'll take the fish out.
So when you successfully siphon this dirt under the water away, then your remaining fish, you can then gently return that back into your pond, and that will like complete the whole siphoning process, the whole thing you need to do on siphoning. When you adhere to these principles, you can be sure of hatching professionally without having to, and taking care of your fish, handling them professionally without having to lose them. Because a major problem for many producers is that they can't take care of their newly hatched catfish.
You can return the fish to the water, but this one is kind of dirty. It's very cloudy, so you just sieve out the fish from the water and return it back into the pond. But you do it gently, not to stress.
So guys, we are done with the siphoning, and the next thing is salt bait. You know, I said you're going to do salt bait for it. Very importantly, because after siphoning, you must have stressed some of these fish. So you need to do salt bait for it. To salt is like an anti-stress for them, right? An anti-stress. It helps them recover on time from stress. So the returning pond, you're supposed to definitely do salt bait for them. And if you want, you can, okay, let me tell you, you can do salt bait once in every 3 days. But if let's say we did salt bait for all of them yesterday, then the just returning pond where you return your siphon fish to, right, you can do just salt bait for that one particular pond. And of course, by now I know the level that my water is supposed to be for my salt bait, so I don't have to actually measure before I know what to do. So this quantity of salt is enough for me for the level at which my water is right now. The formula you can use 100 grams of salt to 50 liters, right? 100 grams of salt to 50 liters. You can see how small this salt is, right? So you're just going to mix this on your tongue. So you mix appropriately. You can see the salt is completely dissolved, right? Don't let it dissolve. You know they are still very little and small. So allow your salt to be well dissolved before you pour the water into it. You can see it's completely dissolved, right? And there is no salt actually showing again.
in this water. So this is what you like give to them with that same formula I gave to you. So when it's dissolved like this, then you can pour it into that particular returning pond to reduce their stress. So guys, after mixing, then you just introduce this salt water into your pond. Just gently give it to them. Make sure you don't pour raw salt, right? For the grow out, you can pour raw salt, but this one, at least they can withstand it a little bit. So don't pour raw salt to this newly hatched crab. Just mix it before giving it to them. You can give it to them slowly. All these mixtures you can give to just one particular pond, but they were not that stressed, so I can decide to just share it across for them. Also pour it gently in order not to injure them. We are done, guys. We are done. So after doing this, you clean this particular stream. You can see with this outlet. You clean it thoroughly. You clean this. My own is cleaned already, but if it is dirty, just clean it so that water can easily flow. Then you run flow through. So you can just, after pouring the salt, you can keep running your flow through and you're good. But if you're not running flow through, after pouring the salt, you allow them to stay for like 30 minutes. You empty the water completely and bring in new water, right? But if you're running flow through like I'm doing, you can just pour the salt. Make sure this is clean and your flow through is running. You can see water running out from this flow through and new water coming in. So when you're done with this, you're good there. And adhering to some of these practices will ensure that you're not losing your newly hatched catfish and will eventually remain profitable in your catfish business. Thank you guys and see you another day.